everybody. Dirty Scrubs podcast. I am V. We got Bree, we got Dre, and unfortunately today Courtney cannot be with us, so we are missing one of our hosts today. But today I have the incredible honor of welcoming our first guest. This is Capt Alang Geh. I met Geh in officer training school back in 2020, and Geh's just one of those people, man. He showed up and we talked about purpose and presence, and I met him and he's just got that presence about him, and he inspired me from the day that I met him, and I'm super honored to have him on this podcast. A little background on Geh. He is Reserve Air Force. That's how we met. And he's currently in DNP school over at Walden University, where he's obtaining his degree and will be finished this May.
Amen.
So welcome to the show, Geh. Just if you could give us a little background about yourself.
Oh, nice to be here today. I'm excited. I heard about your podcast, but with a busy nature, I never really got to dive into. And today was amazing that I took some time to get to know you guys. So I'm really very, very glad. V, thank you. Bree, thank you. Dre, and please share my love to Courtney, even though she's not here today. I'm just a regular guy, seriously. Born in a small village in Cameroon called Isu, and played soccer barefooted, ran around almost naked when I was a child because things were rough. But I am so thankful that God has brought me to where I am today. I think that without incredible people like you, I probably would not be doing what I'm doing. I'm married to an incredible wife. She's amazing with two lovely kids. I have served in the Army for 6 years and then transitioned into the Air Force Reserves.
Yeah, so tell us a little more about that. What brought you to the Air Force? Because I only know you from when your Air Force career started in 2020, but I know you've served a lot longer than that. And excuse me, I just don't know really your story as to what brought you into the Air Force. So would you mind sharing your story?
Absolutely. This is my military story is kind of interesting because being that I was born and raised in Cameroon, I always had a passion to serve, to put a uniform on and I grew up with some bullies and I wanted to stand up against bullies. And I thought if I put on a uniform, I can fight for myself. I learned how to fight. But when I went to college, my first degree is in biochemistry. I looked at the Cameroon military. They were not living up to, in terms of resources, the kids in school, they was all struggling. And the corruption rate, I said to myself, it's really what you want to do. And I started resisting joining the military. My uncle, who happened to be in the Cameroon Air Force as a captain then, told me, hey, I can sign you up right now if you say yes. And I told him, I said, you know what? If I must join the military, Uncle, it will be the greatest military ever that has ever existed. And he said, so what do you mean? I said, well, I watch movies, the American military, it's amazing. I will join the US military. And he said, how do you intend to get there to do that? You're in Cameroon. I said, well, if I don't get there, then I don't sign up for the military. If I do get there, I'm joining the military. And fast forward, I am 28, find myself in America. 2 years, just drove up at the Army recruiter and I said, hey, you guys need people? They say, yeah, so sign me up. And that's how I went to basic training, served with the Maryland Army National Guard for 6 years as a combat medic. And that's where I learned all the medical stuff and I fell in love with medicine. When I became a nurse, the Army was like, well, we don't have money for nurses, but we can commission you as an officer. I said, oh, let me shop around first. So I called the Navy. The Navy was like, well, if you come to us, we'll give you 40 grand. So the Air Force was like, yeah, we have a bonus for flight nurses, $60,000. I'm like, yep, I'm coming.
Wow.
And so that's how,
awesome.
Yeah, that's how I got myself. I found myself in the Air Force and I am loving it.
That's so funny, Geh, because I gotta tell you this story. I remember at officer training school. So for those who don't go through the Air Force, like, Bree and everybody, there's you go to officer training school, and we were the first ever full-length COVID course. So everything was very different. But I remember the first time I saw UG, we were sitting out at the parade field, and we're all in like these bleachers, right? And the bleachers face the parade field. And you're kind of all sitting there and you're mingling, and then the leadership comes over, and like the commander of officer training school, and they kind of do a little bit of an introduction, and they welcome you and everything. And I remember you kind of see them all walking up. There's like maybe 10 or 15, bigwigs coming over, and G, man, just this powerhouse stands up and gets us all to attention. And we like look over at him. We're like, oh, we better follow this guy. And we stand up, we get attention. And I remember the leadership looked up at us, and they were like, whoa, no one's ever done that before. What an introduction, or, whatever. And I was like, man, this guy, he is somebody I need to follow. So I will never forget that about you, G. Like, you just took command on that first week and
wow.
made a huge impact on me. So
wow. That's that Army discipline right there. That's
wow.
what that is.
Yep.
Yeah.
The Army, they don't play.
Yeah, that's what they do to you.
I know. I remember thinking, like, who the heck is this guy? But anyway, yeah, thank you for your service and your story and everything. When it comes to the Army and Air Force, and the flying community is small but powerful, and what you're doing is awesome. But I do want to shift gears a little bit into your organization with Caring Hands Africa. And I'm not super familiar with it. I know you're involved with it, and I know a little bit about what you guys do, but I mean, really, we are kind of ignorant to everything that you do. So could you tell us a little bit more about the organization and what you're involved in and your role, and what you guys are changing lives.
I hope you guys not gonna sleep here tonight, because Caring Hands is like a baby that I gave birth to, and when I hear about it, I get excited. You see, being that I was born in Cameroon, a small village, I was born at home. There was no clinic, there was no doctor, there was no nurses, and my mom was in labor, and this random lady ran into the little hut that my mom was laboring in and delivered me. So my mom tells me this story every day and said, you remember that they gave me a cut because you were too fat when you were born. And I asked her, you had no doctor, you had no nurse. How in the world did they give you a cut? Did they have sterile instruments? She said, no, they used a knife.
Wow.
That scared me. As a child, I didn't see the importance or the risk that she had to take to give birth to me, until I went to college, and I was like, wait, there's a hospital, there are things. So this woman, how did she get me, bring me to this life? Fast forward to the States, when I started went to nursing school. I started combat medic, but in my mind, I always had a dream to go back to Africa and give back and change something, no matter how tiny it was. But I was still struggling to find my way in terms of, getting a career, settling down in the military and all that good stuff. Until when I went to nursing school, just before my graduation, 2014, my sister got up one morning, was driving to school because she was a teacher. And the roads they were dirt roads because they're not good. It was raining. And her car slid off the road and get caught in a bridge, which was, and the river was flooded and everything. So my sister literally drowned.
Oh.
Her car got caught in between that little bridge, and she couldn't get out. And somebody saw how she was struggling in the vehicle and decided to help. When they pulled my sister out, God bless her soul, she was gasping for air, and nobody was able to go and do CPR or even just pound her chest, see if she can just, throw up the water. Nobody did that. And when the husband came, in mind you, that was like between 20 30 minutes for the husband to leave home to where she was, who at least knew a little bit of CPR. They still would not let her to get close to his wife because they thought that was very traumatic. She was just laying there and she died. They called me here early in the morning, 2014, and I was about to go to school nursing school, called me around 4 a.m. and said, your sister is dead. That was a turning point in my life. So I went home, went to where she died, took pictures of it, took videos, and I looked at where she died. And I asked what happened. When they explained to me, that really shook me. And I tell you guys, that was a traumatic event. And I vowed from that day, no matter what happens, no matter how tiny it is, I'm going to help. I'm going to teach people basic CPR. I'm going to go back and provide care. I have to bring access to healthcare. I don't care what it takes. And I came back from Cameroon, couldn't sleep. My wife was like, look, if you have to help, you have to find a way to help. Then I used to work at Mercy Hospital. So my manager could see the changes in my life. And she was like, you know what? I know you've been talking about helping. I don't know, but if you need help, just let me know. So I said, yeah, whatever you can do, I will go back. So the nurses in Mercy Hospital donated medicine. Some bought over-the-counter medications. Some donated textbooks, whatever they could lay their hands on. And I carried all those. That was my very first mission trip. And that's why I will have this on. Then it was called G's Family Health Missions. And my first mission. So I went home, and that's when I saw the desperate need on the ground. I literally worked about 12 to 16 hours a day for my 2 weeks that I was in Cameroon because they kept coming. And I saw kids who had ear infection with purulent material just dripping from their ears and basic antibiotics they could not afford. Even if they could, they didn't have it. Tylenol, I had a little 4-day-old baby with a temperature of 104.8, and there was no Tylenol for that kid. And I'm glad that we're there. So after the mission, I came back and I gave a presentation to Mercy Hospital, and they were like, well, we would like to help, but you got to register this. And that's how I've decided to go ahead and register Caring Hands Africa. Actually got an award for that first mission trip, Daisy Award, I think.
Wow.
And that's how Caring Hands came about. Yeah.
So you truly are the founding father of Caring Hands.
Yes.
Wow. So far up to this point, how did you start getting other people to become involved? Because I took a look at your website and everything, and just for people listening, it is caringhandsafrica.org, correct?
Yes.
Yeah. And I see you have a pretty huge, just like board of, I guess, I don't really know what to call it, but
yeah,
group of people helping you. How were you able to recruit them from being, one guy walking 16 miles a day to having this team of people and taking mission trips now?
Well, so when I launched Caring Hands Africa, I spoke to friends. I'm like, the government said for me to have a charity, I need a board. So I need you, I need you, I need you. And they were like, oh, no, I can't do that. So those that could volunteer, they got on my board because there's the people that I knew. When we had our first board meeting because of the need, because the first mission trip, I saw almost 1,600 patients. And it was just myself. Remember when I went with another nurse who was a nurse practitioner in West Maryland now, Olivia. She's on my board. We went home together and we walked. It was, yeah. So when I came back and I registered Caring Hands, I just spoke to friends and they volunteered. They're like, well, you know what, that looks good. I see the pictures. I see what you do. I would like to be part of it. So the first board was formed. The lawyer, the attorney that I have, is a friend of mine. We went to school together. And he was like, man, I don't have the guts that you have to do what you do, but I can offer you my legal services. So he became our lawyer just like that.
Wow.
And
That's awesome.
That's great.
So yeah, and it's been growing because of what we do, right? Every year before COVID, we'll go home and see. The last mission was 2021. That's where the documentary was shot, and we saw about 1,800 people.
Wow.
And so with what we do, it just kind of attracts like-minded people, compassionate human beings, and they're attracted to us. And then, of course, my local church United Church here in Owings Mills, Maryland, have been very supportive. They don't travel with me, but then I have met a lot of volunteers through the local ministry. I had about 6 students from Stevenson University on my last trip, and they used my mission as a last final year project for their school.
That's awesome.
Wow, that's amazing. So do you know what number you're at right now as far as how many patients you've treated?
Ooh. So for total of 3 missions, the first one was 1,400, second one was close to 1,500. Now the last one, which is 2021, was 1,800 patients. We did a mission that I did not go, and because we already prepared for a mission when COVID hit, 2022, so I didn't have to go. So I sent the medications, and they went to a different community, and I think then they saw close to 600 patients.
Wow, outstanding. You guys are growing 1,400, 1,500, 1,800 every year. You're getting bigger.
Crazy.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
So is there any sort of anyone who stands out as far as patients you've treated, or any personal story that you can give us, you know, for just who's touched you, or something you've had a hard time dealing with, or something where you were like, wow, that impacted me so profoundly? Is there anything that stands out that you'd be willing to share?
Yes. Not mentioning names. On a last mission trip, we went to a village called Bangor, which was my very first mission to a French region in Cameroon. You know, Cameroon is made up of the English and the French side. And because I'm from the English side, most of my missions were going to the English section. And the last mission, I just was praying, and someone said, hey, you can go to this village. And on the French side, I'm like, okay. So one of my volunteers happened to come from that village, and he speaks French fluently and the local dialect. So I took him with me. Went to this mission trip, and the first thing that I saw was the population, the age. This very elderly, patients that came with all kinds of sickness, mostly infection, cellulitis, UTIs, cough, all kinds of infections that you can think of. And I'm sitting there, STDs. First, that morning, they brought a young man who was like 18 and had a massive swollen left hand. And he was working a construction, and a brick fell on his hand, and it became infected. So swollen. So the local doctor was so scared to do it. And then they brought this guy to me. I'm like, wait, you do know I'm a nurse, right? And she's like, well, you're from America. So that was the first time I did minor surgery, and I opened up that hand and I pulled out about 2 liters of purulent material. Yes.
Oh,
Gosh.
And because I go home with like lidocaine that I take, when they use at work, and it's left over, they want to trash, they were like, you can take it. So, but the story that has lasted and has kept me going, it's a 90-year-old woman. They wheeled her into a wheelbarrow. It wasn't a wheelchair, it was a wheelbarrow. And I said, that first I was scared. I was afraid, because she's 90, she's very sick, she's dehydrated, and she can barely talk. I literally asked my volunteer nurses in Cameroon, I said, take this woman and go into the separate room and start an IV. And just so I can recollect myself, I went into my little office exam room and I closed the door. I cried a little bit. I said, God, what have you taken me into? What can I do for these people? And I just got the courage. I came out. When I saw this lady, heart rate was 130, like she was sick. So got an IV, got a fluid, and I didn't have any test kits to check what is it, but I knew she had cellulitis. She said the daughter said she's not eaten for like a week because she could barely speak. There was no energy, failure to thrive. I started an IV, started some broad spectrum antibiotics on her, and cleaned, irrigated her little wounds, and bandaged everything up. Just got her ready, and as soon as she started getting hydrated, she went to sleep. Mind you, I don't have a monitor. The only monitor I have was a pulse ox. So I put on a finger, and I could see the heart rate. And she slept for like 6 hours. Now I got scared. I'm like, hey, can you check that lady to make sure she's still breathing and possibly give me a finger stick? When they went back and woke her up after 6 hours, the first thing she said was, I'm hungry. So, we didn't really eat local food because we don't know how it was prepared. So we had a lot of snacks that we bought from here. We just popped some out. She ate. And by the time she was in our clinic for almost 8 hours, when she got out, and I asked the daughter to take her to the hospital the next day, and I gave her some money. But the old lady said she's not leaving until she talked to me. So they brought her into my office, and she went down. 90 years trying to kneel down. I'm like, no, mama. So I will kneel down. Don't kneel down. Please don't. So she sat down, and this 90-year-old woman stretched her hand and held tight to my hand, not letting go, and speaking in the local dialect. And I asked the daughter what she was saying, and all she said was, God will bless you. God will bless you. God will bless you. And that's, yeah. Came back here, and grandma called one of her nephew here in America and said, if they don't find me and come and thank me, she will curse her nephew. That guy that I've never met contacted me on Facebook, said, I don't know what you did to my grandmother, but I have to see you. And I said, okay. So he drove 4 hours, came to my place and told me my grandmother said I should come and thank you. So who's your grandmother? Because I saw too many grandmothers. So he explained what I did. I was like, oh, that brought tears to my eyes. And he said, if you want to ship anything, I'm going to pay. So the shipment from that time I met that guy, he shipped 2 barrels for my organization. And yeah, that's this. Yeah.
Wow.
These stories are so incredible. Like I'm kind of grateful that my camera's off, because you literally have me in and out of tears. These stories are very, very inspiring. The work that you guys are doing sounds incredible.
Thank you, man.
Sure.
I know, gee, you got me having I got goosebumps. Every time that you tell us one of these stories, it's like, it's just amazing.
Yeah.
Bree, what do you think? Any comments on that?
No, it's just again, very inspiring to see, especially, being a fellow military member, reaching out and doing these kinds of projects, because a lot of people won't go that far and don't, sadly care enough. So it's really nice to see people putting in effort and, getting the results that you want. Like, you guys treated so many patients and changed so many lives. And again, like Marissa said, I got goosebumps. It's motivates me to want to go out and do stuff. So it's amazing what you do.
Yeah. And it's not me, man. I think it's a desire that God gives each and every one of us, and we have to find it. Act on the compassion that God has given you. It doesn't necessarily always have to be the crazy things that I do, because my organization go to a place where there's no clinic. We go off the grid. We don't go to a place that has a clinic, a doctor, whatever. We deliberately go to places that has nothing. It could be very challenging. Sometimes it just takes you talking to me right now to make the difference in Africa. My board chair right now, Captain Brewster, I don't know if you know her. I was working at Andrew Air Force Base as a nurse supervisor, and I worked with her. So we got talking on Caring Hands, and she was like, she's a CCAT nurse. I've been to Senegal, I've been to Niger. She's been to multiple African countries on her mission. So she trains on TCCC. And she's like, I totally kind of understand where you're coming from. I hear you because I've been there. And I said, I need a board chair. You want to get on that chair now? She's like, yeah, sure. And behold, she came on board. And I tell you, because David passed away, I had to re-strategize how to sustain the work that we do. Because just going home, taking care of patients for 2 weeks, leaving, there's no sustainability. The nurses spend more money, more time going back to those communities. And like they went back and David had passed on. I figured that I think I have to go beyond to do the things that do something that's bigger than myself. And I started talking about a clinic. If I had a clinic, the very sick patients will be in a clinic. We wouldn't have to go to those villages to look for them. They will be in our facility, monitored 24/7. And Captain Brewster came right on time and took onto that project. We've been working so hard to get to that point where we'll be able to get a clinic up and running, so yeah.
I did read that on your website. That's one of the current projects that you guys are working on, is the clinic project, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
So we can go directly to the site for our listeners listening and donate.
Absolutely.
You guys also have an education.
We have what they call Education for Kids. It's one of our programs, which that came directly because of the loss of my sister, being that she was a teacher. And those kids that we send to school, when I do go home, we train them CPR. We should begin to show them little things on how to do CPR. We had about 30 kids last year, and then this 2022, we ended up sending 67 children back to school. I have a booklet here with some of those kids.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So yeah, we sent about 67 2022 back to school. That is the sponsorship. To sponsor a child is $120 a year. But then we do back.
Wow.
Right.
That's like nothing.
I have one of my Lieutenant Kirk have a set of twins that here they are. If you guys can see.
Oh, yeah.
Right. The mom passed away during childbirth in the community. So they were home, not school, but one of my wingmen took onto these kids, and they've been going to school now for the past 3 years. But when we do back to school drives, we give out about 400 to 500 backpacks with books, pencils, and all that good stuff. But the kids that are enrolled on that program are about 67.
So you mentioned a little bit, I don't want to reopen old wounds, but you spoke about David there for a little bit. And for any listeners who may not have seen your YouTube documentary, can you tell us the story of David?
David was one of my very first kids that I took in when I went to my first mission in Cameroon. I was seeing a lot of patients, and out of the blues, the young lady that was registering my patients, she was just a volunteer, not a nurse. They brought up David to her, and then she came, she's like, "Hey, Brother G, you got to see this kid like right now." I'm like, "Okay, you do know this is not ICU, right? Maybe he need to get in a boat and go," because we took 3 hours canoe to get to that village. She's like, "Well, you have to see the kid." So I had a patient in my room, so I had to literally take David to a different room. And I asked, my brother is a nurse in Cameroon, so he's always helping out. When I saw David, immediately I knew there was something wrong, because he was severely malnourished. If you see the pictures, David, I've never seen a kid that, you see things on TV, you see where you only see the skeletal structure, just, rib cage, everything just completely exposed. No fatty tissue, nothing. They brought him in and looked at him and said, "Man," I tried to get history on the kid. They couldn't even tell me. They were like, the brother was like, "David has been abandoned by his parents," because they have done everything to treat this kid and he's not getting better. So they have labeled him a child possessed by witchcraft. In other words, he was sick because he's a wizard. He knows what's wrong with him. He's demon possessed. But then when I started doing my assessment, I pointed the light into David's mouth and I saw this huge thrush, and temperature was high. Vitals were completely out of whack. I suspected that David might have HIV, but that's not a diagnosis you want to do through suspicion. So I had to physically do a test, but I couldn't do it at that moment. So what I did to David was I asked the brother if I could send him to a hospital in the city so they can run some tests. I'll pay. He was like, no, that's okay. So the boat that I hired to take us to that community, I said, boat a canoe. I put this little kid in the canoe and they took their little 3 hours again to the city. And David was admitted for 3 weeks. That's how they diagnosed him with HIV. I started an investigation as to how he got HIV. I sent the parents to the same hospital. They were negative. So now I got more curious. How did David get HIV? Then I asked the mom, tell me his story. He said the only surgery David ever had was circumcision. And it was one lady in the village who used a common knife, herbalist, to cut all the kids in the village. And that's when I knew that probably is where David got the HIV, because he's a kid. And I asked where the lady is. The lady, as soon as the lady found out I was looking for her with my team, she ran away from the community. And many kids have HIV because of that negligence or lack of resources. So we took care of David. While I was here, I was still sending antivirus. I made arrangement with the Cameroon government to provide him free antivirus, and they accepted. So all he had to do was his brother was supposed to go out every 2 weeks because they will not give more than, I don't know why they will not give up to a month worth. They give antivirus only for 2 weeks. So this kid will have to literally travel every 2 weeks to go pick up his medication. So I pleaded with the doctor, like, look, it is very tough for this child. And they accepted to give like a month worth of antivirus. The brother will go out, pick it up. If he doesn't go, my brother will have to travel to go drop off antivirus. If he doesn't go, another volunteer will have to do that. And every time they do that, we have to spend money. So I started making arrangements to bring him out completely from that community so he can live with my brother and take the proper treatment that he needs. As we were making those arrangements, the dad, seeing that the boy was doing fine, embraced the kid back home. That, oh, now you're no longer possessed and this and that. And this child went back home. And now we started trusting the parents to be able to care for their son. So they sent me pictures of David, videos of David. My brother took videos. And one of the volunteers, David was fat. He was like overweight. I'm like, wow, okay, you guys take it easy with this kid now. My 2021, when I went home for my mission, I was so looking forward to seeing David. I was so excited. I went to Cameroon, went to the community. I could not even really pay attention to anything else until I see David because I was looking forward to him. I had to see him. I had clothes for him. Everything was set because I knew I was going to take him with me to spend the rest of my stay. He was spend with me. I went, when I showed up, David, because it was a surprise, he didn't know I was coming. When I showed up, David saw me from afar. Before anybody could recognize me, he recognized me and he ran with the greatest speed and got into my hands, my arms. When I lifted David up, I could hear him wheezing. He has lost weight. He was naked, no clothes, nothing, like completely naked. He was regressing. if you watch my documentary, I didn't even know they were recording. I broke down, started crying. I sat down with the parents and asked them what was going on. They were like, well, David, it's not been doing very well. I said, well, my volunteers has been in contact with you guys. What's been going on with the transportation I've been sending to go to the clinic for checkups and stuff? The wife said, well, the husband been owing too many people. So when that money came, he would take and pay his debts and neglected the treatment for David. So I took him with me. And that's where I think I got really hurt because I feel like maybe I would have just kept him. But you can't keep somebody's child until they're willing to give that child to you. So I took David with me to the city. He went back to the hospital, ended up again for 2-3 weeks, admitted. When he came out, I had made arrangements with a friend of mine who is in the Cameroon Navy. And I said, please, put an eye on this kid. Every now and then, just stop by. If he's not doing well, bring him out to the hospital. When we went to officer training school, I couldn't really run anything. So I delegated all caring hands activities to different people. So between that time, I lost contact with David. I wasn't talking to him. And then the Cameroon crisis were like at the mass. So they cut off communication from within that small village to the mainland. They were afraid to come out. The nurses, when I send them, they don't know how to get there because they're afraid of the crisis that was going on in Cameroon. So I lost contact. And before we graduated, the day that we did our final, remember the run?
Mm-hmm.
The day we did that run, in the morning, I got a WhatsApp text message that David was dead. My nurse, the African coordinator in Cameroon, had tried his best. So when the brother called and said David was very sick, he immediately called my military friend for a boat. This time, not a canoe, but a fast boat, so they could rush down there and get this kid. Halfway into the sea, they got a call to say that David had passed on. So when I graduated from officer training school, I asked them to go and confirm that he's truly dead because I still did not believe it. David passed on because the brother said everything that they were sending, the dad would take, and said if he ever tells the team, he would disown him. And the brother, as I speak, his name is Peace. Peace he's not going to school. He's a dropout. He still texts me, and because I was so angry and because I just kind of feel like I blamed them. I'm like, you were the one who promised you would take responsibility on David. You would tell us what is going on. Even if your dad warned you, you should find a way to text somebody. But it was until November last year that I said, I can't keep holding on to this kid. I have to let him go. And I called him and said, hey, it's okay. We're going to try to get you back to school. And yeah, that's David's story. And that it's just, yeah.
Thank you for sharing it. I know it's not easy to talk about for you.
Mm-hmm.
So are the hospitals that David was sent to outside of the village, are those they can't get to them?
You mean the hospital to get to the community?
Yeah, so where David was taken in the canoe, it's not accessible, it sounds like.
Well, with the canoe, yes. With the boat, yes.
Hmm.
The healthcare system in Cameroon, at least that I know of, because I don't know much about other African countries, how the healthcare system is set up. The healthcare system in Cameroon there's no insurance, health insurance, right? So when you show up in a clinic, government or non-government, you come with your cash.
Mm-hmm.
You pay at the door before you can be seen. Your family feeds you. There's no free meal. Your family brings you water to drink. There's not just free water. So everything is paid for. And so people don't go to the hospital because they don't have the money. Now, that hospital knew, because I spoke with the doctor, made arrangements with the doctor to provide medication, and we will carry hands was paying, covering the bills. But if our volunteers did not physically had to go and get the medications and go to that community, the hospital doesn't care. They're not going to send anybody in the hospital to go to that community and just provide help or anything. No, they don't do that. And that's where I think organizations like us come in and take care of those underserved populations that are completely unable to afford anything. As I said, common Tylenol. That was the first time in my life I issued Tylenol in a village, and an older person or even a younger person with migraines sleeps like a baby and comes back in the morning so grateful, as if you provided them with the most, I don't know, like you gave them a gift of life, but it's Tylenol.
Wow. I want to
That's
give
incredible.
Dre an opportunity to respond to your story, because I know she probably has something. Dre?
Yeah, I think that's wow, that's it's crazy that people here, where we're from, kind of just have the so many more advantages with all the resources that we carry here. And even with you guys being extremely limited to your resources and different set of rules, different set of living, that you do make a difference. And I think that when people just receive something so simple as Tylenol, what's readily available for us here, to them, that is like the miracle drug. And that is so incredible to hear that you guys do make a difference. I mean, you are essentially, I understand why they feel like you're giving them the golden ticket, because you really are.
Yeah.
You really are. That is, wow, this is very moving.
Thank you.
So, Gee, how much would you say is like equivalent, I guess, of David staying in a hospital for 2 to 3 weeks? What do you think the cost of something like that is equivalent to, say, because it's so hard to even imagine, like, they need cash readily available to stay for 2 weeks or 3 weeks. Like,
Right.
what do you think is the equivalent cost?
So I would say for David directly, because of the labs and because he was critically sick. For David, I spent close to $100 on average a week. So 2-3 weeks, like $300. But for less acuity kids or patients that are not too sick, but need hospital care, for example, longer antibiotic therapy, they can stay in the hospital for a week and then transition to PO medications. Then it's not as expensive. With another $100 for 2 weeks, they can survive. For just a doctor's visit, you will go in with $50 or $20 to just get a regular quick checkup or UTI treatment and stuff. Now that's money you pay excluding your medications, because you gotta, when the hospital they treat you, you pay them that. If you're outpatient, you pay them the $20, then they prescribe medications for you to go buy off the hospital. So some of those medications are like over the counter. In Cameroon, the only place you can buy antibiotics over the counter. You can buy malaria medications over the counter, which is not the same here. So yeah.
And with your organization, you guys are providing this healthcare for them at zero cost, because you guys are a nonprofit, correct?
Absolutely, yes.
So is there any other organizations? You guys are based out of Cameroon. Is there another organization that helps over there? Like, how far do you guys extend to?
In Cameroon, like I said, we have a lot of nurses volunteering under Caring Hands, and we really don't have like partnership with local clinics. I wouldn't call that partnership, because of the nature of, when you say at the end of our mission, whatever is left over, you give it to your clinic. We've given them to most of the clinics that I would love to call them partners, but as soon as we leave, they sell the stuff. They don't give it to those that need it, right? a partnership will be, okay, you came with some medications. At the end of the mission, you have maybe 3-4 bottles of Tylenol left. We'll give it to those that come in here and don't have anything. We will offer it to them for free. But as soon as we leave, because of the corrupt system, they will sell those things, right? So yeah, with churches, the mission that I said they did, and I was not in Cameroon, was done by a redeemed church, in a redeemed church in a village. So I can call that a partner because they're not going to sell anything. It will be my volunteers that go and perform the mission and make sure that everything that they take there is given out to the community. But the government hospitals, the private hospitals, there was one private hospital that I was really excited to partner with. It was owned by a friend of mine who studied in Cayman Island with classmates, but he traveled back home and opened that clinic. Unfortunately, he passed on last year at COVID. So yes. But we are hoping that with the clinic, if we can launch our clinic, if we can get the clinic up and running, then we can partner with neighboring hospitals, because we're not physically going to give them our supplies, but we can take our supplies and go over there with our nurses and provide free services in their own facility. They can come to us too. They can send us, if a very sick kid goes or somebody goes over there and cannot afford treatment, they can refer them to us. So, well, you could go to Caring Hands, you'll get free treatment. So that's the kind of partnership we're looking at. But it's really difficult to partner with anybody if we don't have like a stable location, because as soon as we leave, everything is sold off.
How close are you to hitting your goal of building the clinic?
There was a property that an older lady was selling to us. We haven't really finalized on if she's going to even give it to us, because she doesn't have all the necessary paperwork in the property. And being that we're an organization, Cameroon is too corrupt in terms of we can pay and then tomorrow somebody will come and evict us from the property. She was selling that property for $50,000, which we're going to transform into a clinic. So right now we have raised $26,000.
Wow.
Yeah. So I'm very positive if we keep pushing, because we have a fundraiser event. I just actually booked the event center today in July 22nd. We're going to hopefully push that to help bring in some more funds. As soon as we get it, if that lady does not sell the property because she doesn't have the paperwork, they will be bound to buy a piece of land and erect our own clinic. That calculation is $88,000 if we were to go that route. So we're literally saving $30,000 if she was able to sell that to us.
Wow.
So yeah.
So Bree and Dre, I have one more question left for G, but I just want to make sure that you guys didn't want to ask him anything else before we begin our wrap up here. Bree?
I have one more question. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Bree.
So pretty much my question, just because I'm military as well. In your 6 years as a combat medic, did you ever deploy?
Well, now we were supposed to go to Egypt, and just
okay.
before we left, the off-rammer deployment. I don't know why.
Okay,
Yeah.
I was just more curious if you'd had gone on a deployment, if you'd ever, done any type of humanitarian missions with the military, and if it has affected how you run Caring Hands at all.
Right.
But
well, I've done humanitarian missions when I was a combat medic within the state and Puerto Rico.
Oh, okay.
Right. So, and that's the idea of the clinic design. I saw it in Puerto Rico. Went to the base in Puerto Rico, and they had this open building with no rooms, and they just had stuff dividing each bed from the other one. And so I took pictures of everything. So that really kind of helped give me a concept of what a clinic that I intend to build home.
Oh, that's awesome. Thank you.
Yeah.
My only last question would be, how do we get involved? Do you have access for us to do mission trips or volunteer hours? How would, if somebody was interested in a mission trip out there to help out with your specific organization, how would we go about doing that?
So thanks for that question. Volunteering for our missions, usually when we plan for a mission trip, we host it on a website, and then we all go share on our Facebook and everything. So when we host it on a website, there is a volunteer form on the website where you can just go sign up and say, hey, I want to go. So we'll get the list of every volunteer, and they will include you on our mailing list to let you know, okay, this is where we are. We're gonna go in say February, and then by this time we're supposed to have all our vaccinations, and after this we're supposed to get our tickets, because if you get tickets early enough they're cheaper versus waiting to get the tickets a little late. They end up paying like $1,500 for a ticket, but if you get them early enough you pay like $800-900 for a round ticket. And then I always try to get insurance on those tickets in terms of emergency evacuation. Then we work as a team. If you volunteer, we'll put you to a volunteer list. Then we start planning our mission together. It's not a one-man show. We hold meetings monthly to say, okay, this is our date to fly. We got our tickets. What next? Come up with a packing list. We plan, we work together until the day we deploy. So if we were to go for a mission trip, it will be hosted on a website, and it will be on our social media platforms.
Perfect. Perfect. We have one doctor that I know of we work with, and he does kind of some street medicine. So I'd be very interested to get with him and see if this is something he's willing to kind of jump on board with. And yeah, definitely
Nice.
love to go up there and help out as well.
Nice. I would love that.
Yeah, that's a good point, Dre. I do want to give a little shout out to some of the emergency department coworkers of ours. We did donate, I think it was about $530 to Caring Hands. So everyone who donated, I hope you're listening up to this point. You now know exactly where your funds go and what G's been doing to help. So one more question for you, G. You've suffered a lot of heartache and loss in your life, and the loss of your sister, leading to Caring Hands and everything that you do now, and even losing David, and I'm sure there's many others that you've lost that I'm sure you can't tell us everybody's story, but
Right.
How do you continue to stay inspired, and who inspires you the most when obviously I know that with your personality, I know you're a man of God. I know that you genuinely love to help others, but I'm sure there's days where you're like, man, it's just so hard. How do you get through that and push past it and stay inspired and continue to do what you're doing? This is incredible. As one man who started this from essentially, like you said earlier, carrying a box of supplies to what you've developed and halfway toward this goal of building your own clinic.
Yeah.
How do you keep it up?
First of all, I would say that prayer has been a huge, huge source of strength. I pray a lot. Probably I would have, when I was listening to your mental health segment, I was like, with the military and what I'm doing, I probably would have been getting a therapist or something. But the number one person that has inspired me and continue to encourage me, my powerhouse, is my mother. It's my mom. She is here with us in the States. And believe it or not, this woman gave birth to 8 of us. She never went to school, but she's smart. She told me that she wanted to be the mayor of our village. And she talks about it. She's almost 80 now. And she talks about it every time she comes over to my house. That I would have been a mayor if I had gone to school. She wanted to go to school so bad. But because then the family was only allowed to send one person to school because that's how much they could afford. So they sent her cousin to school, not her. So she talks about it. She's still upset that it would have been her who would have gone to that school. I said, Mom, only one had to go. So, but she vowed, she took a decision to say none of her kids will be like her. none of our kids would be illiterate. So she pushed us so hard that we can all have an education. As I speak to you guys now, this woman I've raised 4 nurses. Most of my siblings are nurses.
Awesome.
With the one who died was a teacher, and one other one was a hair dresser in Cameroon. She refused, but then she went to school. So we all went to school. She is the one because my wife is the one who said, "You're my husband, and I don't want to see you the way you are. Perhaps it's time for you to take a break. Because then my mom is like, if you take a break, will you be happy? Will you be okay? So you got to do what God has called you to do." So my mother's been the highest person that tells me every day. And my mother-in-law, she was amazing. She passed on a couple years ago. These strong women inspired me. Every time I'm planning for my mission, they are hustling, calling their friends. Mind you, 80 years, so calling their friends to donate talent or to give this, to give that. And because I see the passion in them and I have the energy to do it, I can't stop. I can't. And even when I feel like stopping, for example, I was with the clinic thing, I had a heartache. I was like, seems like this thing is not going to work because I'm not getting the support. I'm pushing, I'm doing everything, but I don't think I'll get a clinic. And here we come, and you reach out to me. I didn't have to reach out to you. You reach out to me. And now I'm here with Bree and Drake and Courtney. Courtney was eventually going to watch this. Then I have the Air Force wing men and just telling me, "Hey, if you want to go, let me know. Tell me how I can help." And everyone I speak to is willing to just like, you know what, I got you. So one thing I have that has constantly reminded me to keep the path is Mother Teresa, who said, "It's not how much you give, it's how much love you put into that giving." And that is everything. When I go for my mission, I always say, if it's only one soul, one person that gets adequate care and extends their life for a month, 2 months, 3 months, then my mission is accomplished. Yes.
Wow, as always, G, give me goosebumps. I think that's I think that's great. I mean, G, thank you so much. You are, like I said at the beginning of this, you're somebody, and Mrs. G, thanks for raising such an incredible son, but you are somebody who continues to inspire me, and I've just never met anybody like you before. And what you're doing is, I mean, you made me emotional through the last hour of this.
I'm sorry, I had to make it, it's supposed
So
to be
thank
a
you.
fun period, right?
In a good way. But I just
Yes.
want to reiterate, so it is Caring Hands, that's plural, caringhandsafrica.org. And for the documentary on you and David, I believe it was called, can you remind me of the title?
Alan and David.
Alang and David on YouTube. And it's
Yes.
about 15 minutes long. Please, please, please watch it. That video changed my life, changed my outlook. And G, you're changing lives, man.
Thank
God
you.
bless you. Thank you so much for coming on today.
I
Bree,
appreciate
Dre?
you guys.
Thank you very much,
Yes.
Alana. It was a pleasure meeting you. And yeah, again, just super inspiring. And yeah, you're definitely changing the perspective of us from what we do over there.
Thank you so much, Dre. I appreciate you. My love to your son.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, you're an inspiration, and this last hour has really motivated me. So I'm excited to see what your organization accomplishes in the future with this clinic, and hopefully someday, I can take the time, if I'm not in the military or whatever, and help volunteer. So
yeah,
I'm looking forward to that. Honestly, I will be glad to take all of you home, and we'll do some cool stuff. And Bree, please share my love to your family, and take some time to rest as you are moving, because I know it's very difficult to move.
yeah.
like this.
So yeah.
Well, awesome. Thank you again, G. And you
Thank
have
you.
the 3 of us. We will continue to spread the word about Caring Hands. Thank you again.
Appreciate that, man. Thank you.
All
Thank
right.
you.